All right. So we had one hiccup, but we're back with Faraz. So thanks for taking the time. It's 4 o'clock-ish Eastern time. So it's after the school day, I assume.
Yes.
No students coming in. We got some code in the background. How fresh is that code? Was that today?
That was not today. That was a couple weeks ago. We were
Ago.
working through something. We
Oh,
usually work on that board,
that
but
board. Okay.
sometimes I put stuff on there if I want them to like reference it.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Um, what was I gonna say? So I actually that's the same classroom that I visited you guys in, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How many kids are in your class?
My
Your
class is eight.
section? And it says that, but you teach the AC CSA,
Mhm.
and that's it?
That I teach?
Yeah, for computer science.
Yeah, for computer science, I teach just those eight. We have another teacher that does computer science principles, but um, that's a different teacher.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So, well, I guess for the YouTube audience, so yeah, I could have walked down to your school.
To the front, your bus is here. Giselle, to the front, your bus is here.
Giselle's bus is here.
Announcements are important. We're keeping that in the video.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could have like walked down to you guys' school. It's like right across the river. So, that's cool. And fun fact, I'm in the Brookline Community Band. I play clarinet, and I drive past your school every Wednesday.
Hmm.
So I'm
Cool.
always like, got some kids using Pickcode in that building. It's good stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, got it. So we were talking right before we hit record, and I knew this, but I forgot it. So this is your first year teaching computer science. So how would you scale of 1 to 10? How would you rate your experience being a computer science teacher
Uh,
compared to like because you've taught other stuff like compare and contrast, I guess.
yeah, it's definitely. So I spent 6 years teaching ninth grade algebra one, and last year I decided like that was the only thing I had taught, and I was like, let's switch it up. And now I teach 12th grade computer science, and so I've actually taught all of these kids before
Oh, really? They
years
were in
ago.
your Algebra 1 class.
Yeah, it's a pretty small school, so pretty much at every grade level there is just the one teacher of the subject. So like if you're taking algebra, like I was your teacher. Um, and I think it's been cool. Like I wanted to switch out of ninth grade because I wanted a bit more of like a challenge in terms of the content I was teaching. I felt like as a ninth grade teacher, like it's a big transition year. You got kids coming
Yeah.
into high school who don't know high school expectations, and a big part of your role is helping them adjust to high school, like regardless of the content you're teaching. And I wanted more of an opportunity to like teach something that's challenging, something that kids actually, specifically in math, the tough part is like you don't know what they don't know. Like
Yeah.
kids are going to come in and they don't like, this kid is not great with fractions. This kid always gets their inequalities wrong. This kid's like slopes or like, negative slopes or da da da, like whatever it is. And that was always something that I'm like, I can't, there's nothing I can do to like address gaps that may
Yeah.
exist. I think that part of teaching computer science has been really um, nice in that everything you need for this class was covered in this class. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Like we cover a lot and we move quickly. You got to keep up. And like if you didn't get something, it was something that like I had tried to teach you. So and like luckily for the most part, kids are getting it. It's nice to see kids like the same kids that might have just been like by the time they're seniors, if they're choosing to take this class, it means they're invested in learning this thing. And I have really felt good about the choice to switch contents. And yeah, no, I
No, that's
the
cool. That's cool.
experience.
Well, and I guess like because you were saying ninth graders, right? You're transitioning into high school, but 12th graders, you actually get to help transition them out of high school.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how like because I taught an AP Java class as well. You're and like part of the year. It's kind of exciting when like I don't know, people are like getting their like admissions letters back or
Yeah,
whatever. I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's like a little bit of drama of like who gets in, who doesn't, but
sure.
still exciting. Um, this is the Pickcode YouTube channel. So we have to talk a little bit about Pickcode, I guess. So you guys found us through the Teals program, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Got it. So
Um, yeah, I had heard about it because the teacher for CS principals had like told me about Teals. Like I didn't know what Teals was coming into the year. And then the guy from Teals reached out and was like, "Hey, in case you're looking for like a an IDE for your class, this is something that we've heard about. Might be worth checking out." And
yeah.
then
So before teaching this year AP Java, like so when they reached out and they were like, what is it? Because it's kind of unique. Like a lot of teachers that we work with, they've used other tools for years and then they're switching over to this. But you didn't have any prior context or like expectations. So did you know that this was something that you needed, or like what was your plan besides Pickcode?
I think it actually kind of worked out nicely in that it was like the timing was kind of perfect in that it's like, okay, this is something that I need to figure out. Um, and I think the interesting thing is that like we think of teenagers as like super tech savvy because they're on devices all the time. But when it comes to, I don't think they are. I think a lot of the things they do have like very friendly user interfaces. Like they don't deal with a lot of files. Like a lot of them spend a lot more time on like iPhones and iPads and not computers. And so in the back of my mind, I was thinking like, okay, we're gonna need to do a lot of coding. How did I learn coding was like on Eclipse, like a program that lived on my computer, and I'd have to deal with the files on there, and I'd have to make sure the file path was configured correctly and that the right things were imported. And it was like, okay, like that is something I will have to explicitly teach the kids how to do because I don't
Yeah.
think I can assume that fluency. Um, and so I had kind of done some Googling on like what programs are often used. Um, but the other tough thing is that most of our school has like Chromebooks. Like all these carts in most of the rooms are Chromebooks. And um, we do have access to Windows laptops for this class, but like if a kid is in study hall or something,
Yeah.
Chromebook. If they go home, they probably don't have their own like desktop or laptop PC.
Yeah. Of
Uh,
course.
so it kind of was like, oh, like I learned about Pickcode. It's like this is something that runs online. They can access it on a bunch of different devices. There's a lot of like convenient features for me as a teacher. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic timing that I'm being,
Yeah. It's kind of
yeah.
like yeah.
So it kind of just showed up and I was like, this does exactly what this is a problem I need to solve. And this is the solution. So
Yeah, that is fairly unique. A lot of other folks have used like six other tools or whatever throughout like a varied career, and I think you probably no, I actually think it is true. You are the only person who has used Pickcode for their entire computer science teaching career. The only tool you've ever known is is,
yeah.
is Pickcode, so that's cool. So with us, so you have what curriculum do you use then? Or like are you making up your own lessons every day? How are you doing that?
Yeah, it's a bit of uh it's like a half and half. Like I go off of this curriculum called CS Awesome.
Yep.
But I have my own sort of opinions on like how I think information is best taught. And like for most of our kids, they do a lot of stuff on like pen and paper. Um, like so I think my general sense is like when something is new, I don't want the distractions of the computer. I don't want the ability for you to run. Like, does it work now? Does it work now? Does it work now? That takes away from like, what am I looking at? Like, what is the concept here? This if statement says this, the condition is this, which variable changes? I don't want you to be able to like just change it and press it and see what
Yeah,
happens,
yeah,
change
yeah.
it and press it and see what happens. I want you to think about like, what am I looking at? And so I'll kind of go off of that curriculum as like, okay, like this is the next concept I need to address. Like, how do we lay out, teach them this and then this and then this and then this. But in terms of how are they doing that, I'd say it's about half and half. Like, I make a bunch of stuff on paper when stuff is new. I make a bunch of activities that I think are like we'll get at stuff. Like sometimes I use the activities that they have on CS Awesome, and then sometimes I make activities on Pickcode that I give them. And usually it's after like we've been introduced to like, okay, a new function, a new data structure. That's all on paper. Now let's work with it. Like let's deal with some arrays, some array lists, some whatever. And that's on the computer. So it's about half and half.
So you go to the copier.
Oh yeah, every day. Yeah. It's
That's
like
great.
maybe like 5 or less days this school year has there not been something physical that kids interact with.
That's so interesting. I mean, because my very lengthy teaching career was two full years, and I did a half year subbing for math. So 2.5 years, I did not go to the copier one time.
Hmm.
Like 100% of everything on the computer. And so, I mean, everybody's got different styles. I
Hmm.
went, I mean, because I visited your class that one time, and it was kind of cool. I mean, it was neat to see, like, I feel like you do get a different type of focus when it's like we have to pencil and paper, do some stuff, and work out some problems. So I think it's neat. It's just I don't have the patience to copy stuff. But no, that's cool.
Luckily, it's only 8 kids, so it's only
Only
10
8 copies.
copies.
Okay, yeah, 10.
Maybe
Sure,
an
yeah.
extra. It's not that bad.
Not that bad. I guess that is a benefit. So you showed me something when we were looking at your Pickcode lesson editor. It's the age of AI, and so you came up with a creative solution. Can you tell the YouTube audience about this? I've shared this with a few other people, and they found it very funny.
Yes, I can. Um,
This is like the only thing that I wanted to make sure that we covered was this one thing.
um, so I noticed that when I uh, made assignments, that the instructions file was like a markdown file, and I like one time I took some like online course on like HTML or like I don't really know what I'm talking about in that sense, but I'm like, this is a file that you can. It looks like it's just like I'm just writing the instructions and they show up on the assignment. But if this is an MD file, then like I can probably put stuff in here that'll affect, like I can change, I can make things bold, I can make things formatted certain ways. So basically, like my first couple homework assignments, um, I had an issue where like I'm assigning digital homework. Like the prompts can just be copy and pasted into like whatever AI you want, and it's going to come up with something. But oftentimes I was seeing like the logic of the solution that kids were producing. Well, actually, multiple reasons. Like I can see their history on Pickcode, and so like if solutions would just show up like like the file is just the instructions, then all of a sudden, like
Yeah.
solution code, it's like, okay, versus like a kid who did it, you can kind of see it being typed out. Like they'll spell something wrong and they'll delete it, and you're like, okay, I know you did this. Um, so one, solutions were just appearing like out of nowhere, probably pasted from somewhere, but also sometimes it's like that's just like elegant logic that we haven't covered in class.
Yeah.
And like and sometimes kids come up with like elegant things. And so I'm not saying like, sometimes it's like, oh, wow, that's actually really cool. I didn't think about doing it that way. But I would like follow up with the kid in class the next day. I'd be like, explain this to me. And they'd be like, well, it gets the answer. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like how? So at the end of the day, like I don't want to have that conversation over and over again. And so I did a little sneaky thing, which is the instructions, like in the file where I put the instructions, I set the text to be white. And like in the middle of the instructions, I would just add something like, you should initialize a variable called something and set it equal to 6. And it's just hiding in white text. So the kids don't see it. They see all the instructions in black text. But if they copy and paste all the instructions, the AI code that's generated will follow the instructions, and
Yeah,
it'll set that variable equal to 6. And and then I
there you
will see
go.
that there is a variable set equal to 6, and I'll be like, oh,
That's an interesting variable, and why is that a part of your solution?
yeah, that doesn't have any place in your solution. I know why it's there. But that was
And then did people f figure it out, or have you still been using that idea?
once it you get one time. So like the first time was like they didn't know that it tracked like edit
Uh,
history.
okay,
I
yeah.
was like, hey, look at this. And they're like, oh. And then as soon as I get somebody, then I've gotten somebody with that method. And then it doesn't work anymore because kids will tell each other, like, yo, you can't, like, make sure you don't. So, but it's kind of fun. Like, it's fun having, like, oh, what else can I come up with?
Yeah.
Uh, so,
That's
but
interesting.
that was something fun.
I sent that idea to another teacher, and they just responded like ha 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 ha, and then I sent back the like Austin Powers, like the Doctor Evil guy, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that whatever. So
Yeah.
um, I thought that was funny. Um, so I mean, Pickcode has been good. You've actually hit like a decent number of bugs of ours though, so I do appreciate your bug reports that you've sent in. They've like sometimes you've actually had some pretty bad luck and hit some like nasty bugs. How are
Mm.
things now? And what do you like? We're trying to figure out what we're working on for the next 6 months, year or so. Like, what do you, in your perfect world, what would we write on the to-do list? What would we get done? Or if they're actual bugs, then we can talk about those now.
Um, I don't think I've run into anything in a long time in terms of like, oh, this is not working how it should. I honestly like couldn't. It's been months since I could remember like something not working. I think like the only thing that comes up every once in a while, I think one thing like that I think I just need to like I didn't know this is what it does is like when like what happens when an infinite loop is encountered? That's
What
the
does
kid's
that?
fault.
Oh,
What?
oh, we had that problem in person, right? Or yeah, we worked that through in person that it like did something weird when there was an infinite loop. Or we had some email
Yeah.
exchange about that.
Yeah, but like that's on the kid like you know,
Yeah,
I think like what was happening was like an input box was showing up and maybe that's but
yeah,
like kids have learned now because there's that stop button. I don't know, was that always there?
yeah. It's always been there. Yeah,
Okay. Well, like they know now, like as soon as they see the oh, like stop, 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 like, but they know that that's their fault. Every once in a while, I feel like the only thing I can think of is like if they make a change and hit run like immediately, sometimes it's like not.
oh, it hasn't like synced yet or something.
Yeah, like I'm assuming there's some sort of like they're writing something. It's sort of like, okay, this is the code, and like if they're trying to hit run, it's like running like it's usually because they're like I'm like just like reload and then it'll run and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's literally the only thing I can think of in terms of like
No, that's a good thing for us to check out, though. I mean, because we're not very, basically, it's like like we auto save it like once a second. But yeah, I
yeah
mean, I'm sure if you type something and then it's less than a second and then you press play, I could see it getting messed up. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, so I think the kids are just like antsy to be like, oh, this is it, run, and I'm like just
There
like
is the little indicator in the bottom left that says like saving dot 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 save.
it
So
does.
once it says saved, they should
Yeah,
be good to go. If it's messed up when it says saved, then by all means that's like, but this sounds something we can improve by. That makes sense.
I don't really I don't really think there's anything that's like comes to mind right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, it's good things are going smooth, I guess.
yeah.
I mean, on the roadmap for us, we do want to figure out some stuff with like assigning stuff, like getting better, like allowing you to do due dates and that kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
once you've kind of got your setup, it kind of you're probably just going to do your thing. So that's cool. Well, I know that it's like already after the school day, and so I don't want to keep you too long. Any did I don't think I had any other questions of importance to ask. Any other parting thoughts? I don't know. How are we feeling before the exam? What unit are you guys on?
We finished 2D arrays.
Oh, you're in a good spot then.
Yeah.
When's the exam?
May 7th.
2 months. And 2D arrays is that's towards the end. You're
Yeah. The only things that are left are inheritance and recursion.
yeah.
Um,
Honestly, I told my students for recursion, and I mean, I guess I'm admitting it on YouTube. I'm not a teacher anymore. I told them I was like, guys, like here's just some resources you can check it out, but like I have the percentages for the test. It's like 6% of the test. I said take the L. I said just take the L. Like if you see a recursion question, just skip it.
I
Because it's
mean,
not one of the
yeah,
free response questions.
no, no. And
Uh,
it's like, I mean, we're gonna cover it, but I think it's like there's always like is it worth spending more? Like conceptually, it is like eh, complex,
it's
like
pretty
the idea
complicated.
of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
keep going until you get to a different case, but you are making yourself like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and is that like that concept versus like a really strong understanding of loops, like going back and reviewing that, it's like,
Yeah, I think you're going to get more bang for your buck on the loops and arrays.
yeah,
But loops and arrays is like 50% of the test. So,
yeah.
um, I don't know. At the beginning of the year for CSA, I was like, guys, this isn't like the most fun class, but like it is very realistic to what like a college computer science one class is.
Mhm.
Um,
I think it's fun.
well, I mean, it's like fun to, I think it's fun to like have the grit and go through and like learn the stuff. But like there are like more exciting ways to learn how to code than like doing a bunch of Java loops or whatever.
Ah,
I don't know, maybe you find it fun
no, I find it fun. It's all puzzles.
to each their own. I mean, some of the multiple choice questions are pretty fun. Like they get complicated. Um,
Yeah,
I guess one thing I will say, this is just random, and I won't edit this out, but I do have a bunch of practice tests that I made for the exam. If you remind me, I can email you those. Uh,
sure.
that are like whatever. They're like realistic enough practice tests that I used AI to generate some of
Uh,
the questions. But and also GPT is pretty good at making CSA practice questions.
it is.
So just FYI. I mean, you got to double check them, but you put the code in Pickcode, make sure it does what it says it does, and then
Yeah.
you get a pretty good question out of there. Anyways, well, thanks again for chatting. I'm gonna stop the recording now. And
No, no, no. I have a story for you
oh
that,
no, what?
yeah. So, I wanted to say that I think the cool thing about Pickcode, like I have a cool story about Pickcode that I wanted to tell you, and then
Oh,
we.
okay. Well, sorry, I cut you off then. Yeah, well,
Oh
let's
yeah, no, you're
leave.
good.
I'll sit back and drink my Diet Coke.
Yeah, but then we can go. I think it's cool seeing like if kids know that they can access the ability to write and run code anywhere, it allows them to be creative with it. And this is like kind of like cool that we're having this conversation today because like 2 weeks ago I wouldn't be able to tell this story. Like there's a kid who came in like not really being interested in CS and like has decided that this might be something that he wants to pursue like for real, like going into college. Um, and he's gotten really into it. Like he's really good at the logic, and he would always ask me like, "Oh, can you write me more problems? Can you come up with problems for me to solve?" And so I would make him more problems on Pickcode and I'd send it to him and I'd be like, "Here you go." And he would do them and he'd be like, "Oh, give me more problems." And I'm like, "Oh, like I don't have time to make you problems all the time." Like sure, like if I have free time, I can come up with some like, "Ooh, write me a function that does this, do
Uh,
this, blah blah blah." Um, but he's now gotten to the point that like he knows enough code. Like the other day in like his study hall class that I'm in there like once a week. He's like, "Mister, I'm trying to make this game. Can you help me with it?" And he had the sandbox pulled up on
oh,
Pickcode.
cool, nice.
And he had made this like this it started out as just like a guessing game. And it's like please type in a number. And like it was like type in a number 1 to 10. And he was like he's like, well, what if they type in something that's not a number? How do I? And we were like, okay, how do we handle input? How do we use like scan? Like we were figuring that out. And then he goes off on his own and he finishes it. And he's like, I want to make this like a game where it's like, okay, so it's like you're starting like an adventure and it's like press one if you want to do this, press two if you want to
Yeah,
do that.
yeah.
And I can see this whole thing coming, like I see it, and he knows the things he needs to know to make that happen. Like I was like, oh, you can like make a random, like if you press one, maybe like generate a number between one and whatever. Like if it's this, then the console says, ah, you've chosen to do this. Like a text-based adventure is basically like
Yeah.
what he's trying to code. But it was so exciting for me as like I just taught you some things. You learn the things. You also have access to a platform that lets you like it's not he's not using the computer from class. Like he can pull this up on a Chromebook. He can pull this up on his phone and like code something and run it and see if it works. And like the next day we were doing like stamp testing, which is this like test to see if you're like bilingual and kids can use it and when they go to college if they're like if they pass the test. And he finished his stamp testing on like the school Chromebook that he was using. And then when he was done, he went back on Pickcode and he's getting people like, yo, try my game. He's walking around with the Chromebook and people are like trying to type numbers into it and he's like, see if you can break it, see if you can make it like, and it's just cool to have that flexibility of the platform and that like he's so invested that like he knows, okay, I don't need my teacher to write me problems anymore. I can come up with something I want to make happen and then see if I'm right. Like he's learned enough. And that was just like really cool. And I was like, huh, this is cool that all these things are in place to make this happen. Like this kid can have this idea, can access it wherever he is, and is like excited enough that like he's going to take that somewhere. And I was like, oh,
There you go.
good
Well,
story to tell.
hopefully people made it to the end of the YouTube video. That's a fun story. That's great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. One thing I will say is if they want to get super complicated, it's like kind of nasty to have to do, but we have like graphics.
Hmm.
So they can do, if they want to look up how to do Java graphics stuff, in the sandbox instead of console, they can select graphics. And then
Yep.
they can like make stuff show up on the screen. Which is like if they get tired of text adventures, it's like substantially more complicated to make graphical user interface stuff, GUI stuff, in Java, but if they want to, by all means, they can go in there and go nuts. So I can send you some info about that. We'll have to follow up. I can send you those practice tests and then some info about that. But that might be something they could run with as well. Because like actual like buttons and stuff will show up on the screen.
Yeah.
Um, but very inspiring story. I forgot because I knew on my list of questions that I wanted to ask, I wanted to say, is there any cool project that you've seen a kid make on Pickcode? And that would have been your answer and it would have worked, but I forgot. Um, but I won't edit out the part where I tried to shut us up before you said your cool story. I'll leave it in for posterity.
I wanted to tell the story myself.
No, that's good. I
Yeah.
like it. All right. Well, thanks again. And I'll follow up with a few things there and great chatting.
Cool.
Cool. All right. I'm going to stop recording now.